What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven, and a subscriber recently recommended that I review the Venom X4 by Tuact, which is a controller / gaming mouse that can be used with PS3, PS4, Xbox, Xbox One, and of course PC. This thing is really awesome, and I cannot wait to test it. Let's get it. Alrighty guys, over here at the Stormtrooper desktop, I'm going to slide myself on in here. And the subscriber that recommended I review this is Rashawn Eppinger, so you have him to thank for knocking my stand over for this review here, because I had never heard of this before, and I'm kind of glad that he mentioned it, because this thing is actually really interesting, because it's not just a mouse, it's also a controller with a hub, and it allows you to use this with consoles and PC. I primarily will be using it with PC, however, I am going to try this on my Xbox One X. So, really cool. Let's get into it. So the mouse is 1200 CPI, so not DPI, but CPI, and all the platforms are supported. Most customizable system, so pretty cool. You can do hotkeys and profiles. Keyboard and third-party mouse supported on console gameplay. 6 preset profiles are switchable on the fly, so that's awesome. If you have a profile for a racing game, profile for a shooting game, profile for whatever else. Probably not a racing game because it's a mouse, but you know what I mean, like MMO or something like that. Transceiver and mouse firmware are upgradable. Don't know if you have to pay for the upgrades or what. Green software for setup on Windows PC and Wi-Fi setup on the fly. You have a Android app that you can download, and then you also have the Tuact website QR code on there as well. Pop into this bad boy. There we go. Kind of tight. Whew. Okay. So we have the mouse here, which is a 10-foot braided cable. Very nice. You do want a long cable with this, because if you're going to be using it for console, obviously, you're going to need to be probably pretty far away from your TV. This feels really good. It has like a matte finish. It's rubberized. The entire thing is rubber coated, which feels really good. It's nice. Ergonomically, it feels really good in the hand. It's not ambidextrous mouse. It is a ergo mouse, and it feels super good in the hand. Like, a lot better than I actually thought it would. You have a button on top here, which I'm assuming is for switching the DPI or profiles. Scroll wheel is rubberized and feels pretty good. It's very light, so that can be a good or a bad thing depending on your preference, but it's very light. Really good clicking action, and both the buttons feel super nice. Like, they feel like mechanical switches, very clicky. They feel a lot like Razer mice, which is a good thing, because I love Razer mice, as you guys probably know. The stock skates don't look very impressive, but it glides pretty good on my mouse pad here. You know, if I was using this as a dedicated FPS mouse, I would probably upgrade the skates to like some G skates or something like that. Then you got your sensor in there, made in China, of course, and then you have 4 Phillips head or cross-tip screws in the bottom if you want to take it apart and paint it or do whatever. Now on the side you have this little diamond cut rubberized section, and then you have an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 programmable buttons. This one's in a really interesting place. You kind of use your little bone there to press it down. Then you also have these ones here, which looks like these two could accidentally get, because they're literally right where your thumb is. It's really hard to actually cleanly hit one of those 2 buttons by the thumb, at least for mine, and I have skinny little thumbs, so if you have some big old meat hammers for thumbs, you're going to have a real difficult time. This button that's labeled F up here, I do not think is programmable. I think that's probably a rapid fire button, so basically if you're using a semi-automatic gun, instead of having to, you know, click the left trigger, you press this or hold it down, and it basically sends a code that you're pressing the left trigger repeatedly, so you, in essence, make your semi-auto weapon full auto. So, pretty cool little mouse. Then you have your little USB to micro USB plug here, braided as well. Looks like probably also a 10-footer. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting. This is the actual controller. Now this feels a lot cheaper than the mouse. The mouse is all rubberized and feels really high quality. This just feels like a kind of a cheap VR controller or something. But anyway, it's got a 1 and 2 trigger in the front there. You have a analog stick, which feels pretty good. Snaps back to center pretty quickly. Good weight on it. It also clicks down, so that's good. You can have a sprint on there or something. Then you have D-pad buttons, a power button on there, as well as an F, so it's probably another quick fire button, and another programmable button off to the side. So you just pretty much play like this. I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to feel on PC when I'm playing like Modern Warfare or Destiny or something. Really interesting. Okay, I see. Alright, so you got some weights there that you can put in the mouse, and then you also have additional D-pads. These are actually just rubber covers that go over the actual analog stick. Whew, that good old Chinese plastic. Alright, so I'll pop one of these on now. You have this kind of flat PS4 style one, and then you have this concaved ribbed one, which looks like it would probably give you some pretty good grip. Which one feels best on the thumb? I kind of like the ribbed one. Ribbed for his pleasure. Let's go ahead and slide that bad boy on there. Whoa, there's no way that's for that. It's way too small. This is your control hub here. You have a host port, which is micro USB. Then you have another micro USB that's EXT power, so external power, I'm assuming. And then you have 3 USB ports on the front of it. You have a light which will illuminate when it's powered on. A little bit of labeling there. This is really cheap plastic here. This thing feels, you know, like just super cheap. So far the mouse is the only thing that feels durable and quality. These just feel super cheap. So I think this actually just takes regular batteries. Yep, this takes 1 AA battery. That's never a good sign. At least not in my experience from reviewing tech things. And then you have 1 button on the back, which I'm assuming is to pair all these devices for console use. And speaking of console use, you have a Xbox One back here. You have a PS4 back here. They're all labeled. Actually, this goes on the front of the PS4. And then you have a Xbox One alternate mount for the front here. Not 100% sure what this is for just yet, but we're going to find out very shortly. You have your instruction manual right here, quick user's manual they call it. The instruction manual is English, large font, easy to read but not color. Shows you the programmable iron weight cover. So I guess you remove this little plastic cover. Oh yeah, sure enough. Okay, you get your thumb under there. And if you want a heavier mouse, I personally don't want it any heavier, but if you do, you put those weights in there and then replace this cover. There's also a little button in there, which I'm assuming resets it or programs it. Pop that back in there without breaking it. Alright, cool. So it talks about the transceiver here. You have a profile select / Wi-Fi button on the top. That's that, geez, this thing is light and flimsy. That light on the top there is actually a button, and that is your profile select and Wi-Fi button, as well as a multi-function LED. You have your controller USB port on the left, you have your pair button right there, and then you have your mouse / keyboard USB port. So you'll be able to use an actual keyboard and mouse if you want with your console. So that's really cool that this adapter allows you to do that. So you can, you know, use a keyboard and mouse with your Xbox or PS4, essentially turning it into like a budget gaming PC. Still not going to get the, you know, frame rate of a PC and the graphics and the, you know, all the other experience you get from having a gaming PC, but at least you'll be using keyboard and mouse, so that is a plus, especially for those FPSs. And then on the back you have your host and your external power supply. It says external power supply jack to a 5-volt charger, optional but not included. All right. Interesting. And then it has a description of how to connect to any console from PS3, Xbox 360, PS4, Slim, Pro, Xbox One, S, X, PC. This works with everything pretty much, except Switch, but nobody really cares about that. We ain't playing Animal Crossing here, boys. Alrighty. Cool. Well, let's set it up for PC to start, and I'll play with it a little bit. I'll go through the process of setting it up for PC. Then I'll do the setup process for Xbox. I'll be doing gameplay for both at the end. And then I'll go ahead and bring you guys over to my screen where we can look at the different pricing options and different websites that offer it. And I'll give you guys my final thoughts. So it looks like they made setup pretty darn easy. It actually just detects whatever console or PC you plug into. So you plug the micro USB end into the back of the transceiver where it says host. External power is completely optional. I don't really know why you would use it if it can just get powered off whatever console or PC you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this into one of my, I'll use my 3.0 port on top here. Alright, it's doing its thing. Setting up device, Venom X transceiver, so it already knows what it is. That is a good sign. I also have battery in this controller now, so when you turn it on, you get the little green, cool, computer said device is ready to go. Get that little green light on there to let you know that you are hot to trot, ready to rumble. So, next, we're going to need to plug in the mouse into the transceiver, I guess. That's how that works. Technically, I feel like I could just plug this into my PC, but if you're using a console, definitely you want to plug it into the transceiver. But, you know, just to make things simple, I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the transceiver. Into one of the two ports, the USB ports on the right-hand side. And then this, I'm assuming, is wireless. Yep. It's going to have to pair with this bad boy. I think that's what this little button's for. So these LED bars here are actually the battery level. As you see, I have 4 of them illuminated, so I'm at full battery. And pairing this is super easy. Just put the battery in there and press the pairing button. And then this will start doing a little spinny dance, and it pairs in about 10 seconds. And that is now good to go. You can tell that it's registering because every time I hit a button or anything, it makes a little, the light go off on there. And then also, when I press down, I'm actually scrolling down this web page here, which is pretty cool. But in order to get the mouse working and also be able to set up the 6 customizable profiles and remap your buttons if you're using it on PC like I am, you go to, just Google Tuact X4 download or software or drivers or any of those. It'll take you to this site here. They also have the actual URL right here, software/Venom X4 installer.exe. They have 2 different versions you can use. They have an Android version, which is more user-friendly but lacks some features. I'm going to go ahead and use the Windows version here. Alright, it's a zip file it looks like, so we'll just put that on the old desktop and extract it real quick. Alright, extracts it to a .exe, and okay, so you don't even really need to install it or anything. As soon as you unzip it, bam, you're good to go. So it says a new firmware version is available. Please go to the firmware window to upgrade. Okay, let's go ahead and do that first, and then I'll have you guys on my screen so we can go through some of the software setup. So during the firmware update, you get the little status light doing a little flashy dance, and of course you have a bar on the window as well. I've been using the Tuact Venom X4 as my daily for over a month now for Destiny, Modern Warfare, and most commonly Tarkov, because that's the game that I've been playing a lot recently, and it has performed absolutely amazing. Now I will say setup is a little bit rough. It's not the most user-friendly thing in the world, and sometimes it still has little random issues every now and again. So Escape from Tarkov obviously has like a ton of different controls because you can like lean out, you can adjust your crouch and stuff like that. And it's been really nice having this because even though there's only like a limited amount of buttons, you're able to set up in the keybinds in Tarkov to have different functionality for just tapping, double tapping, as well as holding down. So like pretty much all these buttons are multifunction now, which is really cool. And just being able to use the analog stick to run around and click down on it to sprint instead of having to use my pinky to hit shift. I have jump set to double tap this button instead of pressing the space bar. This is control and alt, so like while I'm holding these down I can be clicking items and throwing them in and out of my inventory. It's just really nice, and this gaming mouse is like phenomenal. If it was just a mouse alone, I'd be impressed, but the fact that it's part of a overall gaming ecosystem that has like a wireless controller, a hub, and this, it's pretty impressive. The grips on it are super good. The skates are actually really good. It's just overall a really good layout. I was kind of worried about these two buttons being too close together, but it hasn't really been an issue. My biggest gripe though is just that instead of being able to adjust the DPI from the top here, you actually have to take off this little cover here in order to get in there, and I think that's a really stupid design. I think they should just have an external button to adjust the DPI instead of this button here. They also have two slots to add weights. I don't know why you would want to add additional weights to your mouse, but if you like a heavier mouse, you can add them. But I just feel like this is unnecessary because it adds kind of a texture that you can feel with your hand, because you can feel all these lines in here, which is kind of stupid, but I never really adjust the DPI. I have it set to what I want, so I'll probably just end up putting some back grip over it or something like that, so that way it's covered up. But overall, just a really nice rubberized finish. You can see my finger greases have kind of soaked in there. But just a good design. The scroll wheel is a little bit light for my taste. It's very, there's like no resistance to it. It's just very loose, which I don't necessarily like. The rubberized coating on it feels good, but it's just too loose. But all the function buttons on it work really good, and it's very responsive. DPI is really good on it. Skates, like I said, very good. You've got that 10-foot braided cable, which is very important if you're going to be using this for console and you're sitting on your couch away from your television. Now, this feels pretty cheap, so does the hub itself, but it works though. It's comfortable, it's ergonomically really nice. It comes with 3 different thumb caps, so if you want to use different ones, you have that option. And like I said, you can have multiple functions set for all these buttons. Like if I double tap this, it does something. It's really cool. You can even do a combination of buttons and that works, but let's go over to the screen real quick. I want to run through the software because that's kind of the weak link in this setup here, is the software support for it.
Alrighty, so over here at the PC, as you can see, and I have the Predator X4 software program open here, and this is kind of the weak link with this product, is because it's not very user-friendly, especially the first couple times you use it. You will need to install drivers and updates and whatnot. I had to reinstall the updates because I guess they didn't go through properly or whatever. And there's also 2 separate drivers you need, one for the hub and then one for the gaming mouse, so that's kind of frustrating. Also, sometimes these reset themselves and then you have to reset up your keybinds, which is kind of stupid. I also don't like the fact that there isn't multiple presets that you can make for the mouse. So if you're playing different games, obviously like Tarkov, and then you go over to like Destiny or something like that, you're going to need different keybinds. So you're going to have to adjust them in-game each time you choose a new game. Also over here in PC, these will also switch over sometimes, which is kind of frustrating. You can load and save profiles for this device, which is kind of nice. I just wish they would apply that over to the mouse as well. Now, you do have different console settings over here, and they're all pretty similar as far as what you're able to adjust. It's mouse speed, auto fire, and a bunch of other crap like that. So just make sure you stay up on the updates and, don't get frustrated if it forgets your keybinds. You might need to sometimes just open up the software, close the game you're playing, and then reopen it with the software program open, and it'll work. So it's a little finicky sometimes, but honestly, that hasn't been happening too often. That happened more so before I did the firmware updates, so it seems to be working pretty good now. And like I said, I use this thing daily to play Tarkov, and it's awesome. Like honestly, it's a lot more ergonomically relaxing of an experience than using a gaming keyboard where you have to remember a ton of keybinds and you have to be able to use the entire keyboard and mouse. Just having this little thing in your hand and being able to like lean your seat back and play with this and the mouse is just really nice. Honestly, this thing is really cool. I figured I was just going to return it after the review, but I'm definitely holding on to it. It's an awesome controller, and I definitely stand behind it, and I'm super glad that I was recommended to review this because I had never even heard of it, and it's pretty fucking cool. So Alright guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.